because while I did mention that to Tamal Krishna sometime after the conversation, it wasn't something that we spoke about in subsequent years. So that it happened through whatever arrangement of the devotees there means that Srila Prabhupada's wish was fulfilled, and so many Brajbasis were able to pay their respect to Srila Prabhupada in this traditional way.
Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Benam Kanmantang Aravinda Dalayataksam Benam Kanmantang Aravinda Dalayataksam Barahavatang Samasita.
As we went from one place to the other, people were performing arti, offering flowers, offering prasadam. Just, all of Vrindavan was displaying their love and affection for Srila Prabhupada. And then finally we brought him back, and then we prepared to put him in the samadhi. And the thing that amazed me is that Srila Prabhupada had left the night before, and now this was almost noon of the day after. So this has been a significant amount of time. And of course, for an ordinary man, within an hour or two, rigor mortis sets in, and the body gets stiff like a board. But Srila Prabhupada, his entire body remained not stiff at all. It was completely loose. Every joint, every part of his body was loose and completely flexible. There was no mottling, no settling of blood in the different areas of the body that happens to people, the ordinary persons who die. There was no odor. And we had undressed him again and prepared him to bring him down into the samadhi, and his body was still fragrant. Every symptom was that of a greatly advanced Mahabhagavat, completely pure, completely Brahman, completely spiritualized, who had achieved Mahasamadhi.
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visesha Sobhang Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Chintamani.
He was carried on a chair, sat under the tamal tree for darshan of the deities. And we could all tell it wouldn't be long. This one day, Prabhupada had this magnificent garland on. And for a moment I looked at him and I thought, oh, I wish I had that garland. And immediately I felt so horrible. I felt, here's your spiritual master, and look at him, and you're wanting something from him? And I started crying. I was so ashamed. I went to the corner of the courtyard and I couldn't stop crying. At that moment, Vrindavaneshwari, my daughter, was 2. She went over to Prabhupada spontaneously, paid her obeisances. And as she was getting up, Prabhupada took the garland off and placed it on her. She ran over to me and immediately put it on me. I have that garland today. I've dried it. I've sewn cloth around it. And that garland is being used when we're in the company of different individuals who are leaving their body. They wear that garland. So Prabhupada's mercy is very far-reaching.
The Samadhi ceremony was going on. Narayan was organizing. One or two of his assistants were there. Bharadraj was leading that kirtan. I was having the kartals, Nitai Chand was playing the mridanga, and a few hundred devotees were chanting. And then, of course, after Prabhupada was placed there, salt was surrounded underneath and on all sides to form an antiseptic cover for the transcendental body of Prabhupada. And then soil was thrown in. I was also fortunate to throw some soil on top. It is said in the CC during that Samadhi ceremony of Haridas Thakur that anyone who throws soil into the Samadhi of a pure devotee will be liberated, will go back to Godhead. So I was thinking, even here we're getting Prabhupada's mercy. Of course, there'd been an Abhishek of Prabhupada just prior to his entering the Samadhi, and then the Abhishek water came out, and I was fortunate to get about a liter of it, which I drank. I kept a small quantity in some small bottles. So I was able to throw soil into the Samadhi and at the same time drink the Lilamrita.
The hole which was dug for placing Prabhupada in Samadhi, the devotees had stayed up all night excavating that hole. There was a little roped off area, and we were all just pressed up against this rope watching. Of course, we didn't know what was going on, but we watched, and gradually Srila Prabhupada's transcendental Sri Vigraha became covered. And then it really started hitting me that this is the last time that I'm going to see Srila Prabhupada with my eyes. And then I just broke out weeping and weeping. And that was the completion. They poured the earth on top of the Samadhi, and I remember going back to my room, sitting down in front of one of the favorite pictures I kept of Srila Prabhupada, and I just did my own little Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. And then after that I just collapsed, took rest, and got up a couple hours later, and there was a whole ceremony going on of different speakers coming and glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And then after that there was a huge feast, and all the residents of Vrindavan came, and thousands of people were fed with prasadam in Prabhupada's honor.
I witnessed the transference of Srila Prabhupada from his manifest to his unmanifest pastimes. I witnessed Prabhupada's final parikrama around Vrindavan. I witnessed Prabhupada's interment in his Samadhi in Vrindavan. And I also witnessed the installation of the Pushpa Samadhi in Mayapur. And to this day, you could tear my soul from my body, but you could not separate me from the conviction that Srila Prabhupada is completely embodied in his books, and that he's fully present in his Samadhis in Mayapur and Vrindavan, and that he's present wherever his devotees are, sincerely trying to carry on his mission.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Considering his last will of going around Govardhan, his followers, his disciples, did take Prabhupada, the small brass murti of Srila Prabhupada, which was first taken to Radhakund and bathed with Radhakund water. And there was a procession around Govardhan Hill, hundreds and hundreds of devotees and friends and well-wishers, followers of Prabhupada. We went performing Govardhan Puja. Prabhupada was on the mind of all of us, so we were carrying Prabhupada on our minds and in our hearts, so how could Prabhupada not be there? He was very much there. Prabhupada, his mission of preaching, he wasn't thinking of stopping at any time. He was just unstoppable. His desire to spread Krishna consciousness was so intense. He was dead set. If you talk of determination, he's a personification of great determination to spread Krishna consciousness, and he exemplified that by his last will of going around Govardhan. It wasn't a drama for him. He wanted to go. He wanted to go on a bullock cart and travel or do some preaching or programs if possible. The night before he was appealed to, please don't go, don't go. And the next day he comes up with this bus program. Take me on the bus. Take me out of here. I want to be in the field, be with the public. Let me die on the battlefield, preaching, battling with Maya. So he was trying to make his followers understand his spirit, his determination to spread Krishna consciousness. And this is how he was preparing us or his followers, future generations, to go on till they reach every town and every village in the world. Like Prabhupada, he was so determined. He would not stop till Krishna consciousness movement reaches Nagaradi Gram Sarvatra Prachar Hoibe Mora Nam. So I think Prabhupada would be accompanying the preacher of Krishna consciousness movement who would be visiting the very last village on this planet, bringing the holy name there. The will, power that he had, strong, strong will, which is only giving us inspiration to carry on spreading this Krishna consciousness movement.
When Prabhupada first came back in 1977, he gave a real intense lecture about Vani and Vapu, association through personal association or association through instruction. And I remember the intensity of that too, because we also had our teachers, despite the problems, they were pretty sincerely into this. I mean, why else would they give up their lives? So whenever Prabhupada would give these heavy lectures, they used to kind of go out of their way to make sure we got the point. And so I remember when Prabhupada gave that intense lecture, so many of you want to be around me physically, right? But the truth is when you associate with me through my instructions, it's much more effective and I'm much more pleased by it. Of course, we want Sangha with the sadhus and with the spiritual master, but he said the most important thing is to associate by carrying out their instructions, carrying on their mission. And I remember that too, and I knew what it meant. And then I've noticed even as an adult, a lot of projects I've done, the ones that were completely successful were when I've always had that attitude that somehow I'm with Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
When I first met him, I looked at him when I didn't know what to say, and I said, Srila Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. And then he saw that I had a tape player in my hands. And so without my having to say anything, he just closed his eyes and he started tapping his hands together and he sang his Mangalacharanam before singing Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And then he started singing Hare Krishna mantra. And it was like going into another world. He was chanting so beautifully, and it was like each syllable was just drenched in bhava and prema. And after about 20 minutes, he stopped. And then he looked at me and he said, I would like to tell you something. And I said, what is that? And he said, I'm an old man and I've had a lot of experience in this world. From my experience, I can honestly tell you that there has never been a greater Acharya than your spiritual master. And when he said that, I became stunned, because he was the disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then he looked up and he said, there's never been an Acharya in history who has performed miracles like your spiritual master. And then he paused and he looked at me, he said, do you know why? And, I was like so stunned, I couldn't say anything. And he said, because in history, there was never a greater servant of Sri Krishna's holy name than your spiritual master. Because your spiritual master had so much absolute understanding of Sri Krishna's holy name and so much absolute faith in Sri Krishna's holy name that he personally carried Sri Krishna's holy name through the length and the breadth of the world. Therefore, he is the greatest Acharya who has ever existed.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Rama